Is it time to panic after an epic collapse against one of the NHL's worst teams? That's next in this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 18 plus years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. You can enjoy the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The LA Kings played game number 22 of the NHL season, a Monday night game in San Jose against the Sharks. The Kings coming off a decent little stretch of games at home where the goaltending had been good, allowing just 3 total goals, and the defense had been stingy. They would look to keep that going during a quick one-game road trip up north against a division foe that is young, rebuilding, but not so good this season. As for the Kings lineup in this one, there was one minor change to the forward group. You would still have a top line of Anze Kopitar centering Adrian Kempe and Alex Turcotte, at least to start the game. Philip Deneau would center the second line with Kevin Fiala and Trevor Moore. Quentin Byfield centering the third line with Alex Laferriere and Warren Foegele. Trevor Lewis would center the fourth line in place of Samuel Helenius. Akil Thomas inserted into the lineup. Tanner Jeannot would join them in just 17 career NHL games for Akil Thomas. He's got two of his 4 career goals have come against the Sharks. Plus, I'm sure Jim Hiller wanted to get him back in the lineup here after being out for a couple of games, so it made sense to put Akil in the lineup. The defensive pairings would be the same that we've seen of late. Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov, the top pairing. Joel Edmondson and Brian Clark, the second pairing. Jacob Moreira and Jordan Spence, the third pairing. David Rittich would make his 4th straight start in net for Darcy Kemper, who's out with an injury, and Eric Portillo, after a quick stint with the Ontario Reign, called back up and was the backup for the LA Kings. So the big question in this game for me, would the Kings carry over their strong defense and goaltending on this quick little trip away from home? Well, let's get into the game summary. The Kings did not get off to the start they wanted in this game, to say the least, as San Jose grabbed an early 1-0 lead, a breakaway goal by Marco Sturm. He got behind the defense of Jordan Spence and Jacob Moreira. Just a minute 47 into the game, the Kings were down 1-0. Unlike their previous game in this first period, the Kings shot a lot of pucks wide of the net. San Jose didn't have a lot of zone time in the first period against the Kings, but they had some decent scoring opportunities, didn't capitalize, and the Kings were kind of lucky to be down only 1-0 after the opening period. However, the Kings would turn it around in the second period, thanks in large part to Adrian Kempe. Kings tied up the game on a Brandt Clark goal. The young defenseman jumped up in the play, got a nice backhand pass from Kempe before wristing it into the net, and we were tied at 1-1. Later, Kempe made a nice move around a defender in the neutral zone, left the puck for Anze Kopitar, and then Kempe went to the net. Kopi would pass it over to Warren Foegele, who was playing on the line with him at the time. He put a shot on goal. Kempe was there for the rebound, took a couple of whacks at it, couldn't get it in the net, but Anze Kopitar came in to clean it up, and the Kings grab a 2-1 lead. The Sharks, however, would tie it up with a bit of luck. A wraparound attempt goes off the skate of Kings defenseman Mikey Anderson and into the net, and we were tied at 2-2 after 2. Much better period for LA in the second. The Sharks' 2 goals in this game to that point had come on a defensive breakdown and, frankly, some puck luck. So the Kings looking okay going into the third period. But things would fall apart quickly in the third. San Jose would score just a minute, 3 seconds into the period, with star rookie Macklin Celebrini surprising goalie David Rittich with a shot from the half wall just outside the right faceoff dot. That made it 3-2. Sharks would score again a minute, 9 seconds later as LA's Trevor Moore kind of bumped into his own goalie and David Rittich right before the puck went into the net. For some reason, Kings head coach Jim Hiller challenged for goalie interference. It doesn't work that way if it's your own player. The challenge failed, resulting in San Jose getting a power play. And right after that, Warren Foegele was called for tripping. So a 2-man advantage for the Sharks. They would capitalize, scoring a goal. Sharks get 3 goals in under 3 minutes. They led 5-2, and that was essentially the game at that point. Despite a lot of the third period still left, the scoring didn't end for the Sharks. They would tack on 2 more goals, and they would skate away with a very satisfying 7-2 victory over the LA Kings. Shots on goal, as we look at the stats, team stats in this one, favored the Kings 24-21. The special teams favored San Jose. They scored 2 power play goals on 6 opportunities. The Kings were 0 for 2. Faceoffs favored the Kings 33-27. Hits favored San Jose 20-18. Block shots favored the Sharks 16-6. So what is my takeaway from this game? Have you ever seen like a cartoon or a movie where a character had like a little angel on one shoulder and the little devil on the other shoulder trying to convince him of a couple of things? I kind of feel like that in this situation. So the little angel is whispering in my ear, look, every team has a stinker or 2 or 3 during a season. Every team has an ugly loss to a not so great team. Don't overreact to any one game. It's ugly. It's a bit embarrassing, but big picture, it's really not that big of a deal. Plus, the Sharks have been playing better of late. While the little devil is telling me the Kings are not a very good team. They just got their asses kicked by one of the worst teams in the league. This team has no chance to do anything if they even make the playoffs. That was embarrassing. We're screwed. Well, I'm not ready to throw in the towel on the Kings after one loss, even an ugly loss like that. There are still 60 games left in the season, but clearly this one makes you shake your head and not feel great about this team. Now, we shouldn't make too much of any one game. Let's say, for example, the LA Kings win their next game against the top team in the NHL. Let's even say they win convincingly. Is anyone going to really say, hey, we can win the cup this year? We just beat the best team in the league handily. No, of course not. We're not going to say that. We're going to say that was one great game, but it's a long season. So why should we not think that in this loss against the Sharks? Again, it's a bad loss, and you got to call it what it is. And this was a team loss. Everyone had a hand in this loss. Bad defense, bad goaltending, bad special teams, bad coaching decisions. It's a bad loss to a bad team. And oh, by the way, the Sharks didn't even have their best player so far this season. Their top scorer and not only point producer and goal scorer, Mikael Granlund, was out injured. So you got to call it what it is. It's a bad loss. It's a bad performance. It's a bad third period, but you can't overreact to it. Look, it was a 2-2 game going into the third, and you could certainly, I think, argue that the Kings were the better team at that point. But things got out of hand real quick, snowballed, and it got ugly. So my suggestion to all of us, including myself, because believe me, after that, watching that loss, I was not in a good mood. Take a deep breath and move on. Quote of the game comes from Kings head coach Jim Hiller, talking about the third period of this, courtesy of Kings insider Zach Dooley, kingsinsider.com. Hiller said, quote, "You've got to be better, everybody, not just one guy, not just one line, not just the defensive pair, not just the goalie. It's the whole crew. It's a game 2-2 in a visiting team's building, and you got to get out there and be ready to fight, and we were not ready to just grind it out and fight it out clearly." End quote. So what was good from an LA Kings team standpoint? Well, like I said, I thought the Kings were probably the better team through 2 periods, not by a wide margin, which is disappointing against a young team that has been playing better of late. But this is still not a good team. They're not. They're going to finish, if not last, maybe second to last in the Pacific Division. They're going to be, one of the bottom 5-6 teams in the NHL. Maybe they're heading in the right direction, but still, 7-2 loss to that team. It's hard to find a lot of positives from a team standpoint. Again, a good second period for the Kings, solid second period, but last time I checked, the hockey game's 3 periods. What was not so good for LA from a team standpoint? Certainly the way it started, and the way that the Kings started the first and the third periods were pretty bad. You had an ugly defensive breakdown to start the game. You can't give a team like San Jose, hope and get them going early by having a defensive breakdown like the Kings did. The power play, we were talking about that big goal by the Kings, Quentin Byfield, game-winning goal, power play goal against Seattle. We were hoping that would get the power play going for the Kings. It didn't in this one. Bad penalties, too many penalties. Also bad penalties at bad times. And got to call out head coach Jim Hiller in this game for that goalie interference challenge. I don't know what he was thinking on that. They've got tablets on the bench. They've got video screens on the bench. Coaches can see. The first replay that I saw, I'm like, that's not goalie interference. And why he decided to challenge it at that point in time when you're down 2 goals and if you don't get it, you're giving up a power play chance. Now, he didn't know Warren Fogle was going to take a penalty and give up a 2-man advantage and then basically put it out of reach with the next goal. But risk versus reward. And it wasn't close. It really wasn't. And I don't know if he got some bad advice or if that was just a bad call on his own, but that was a bad challenge. And it didn't help things down the stretch. Up next, we'll look at some individual players for the Kings in that loss to the Sharks. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Just go to PrizePicks, go to the app. You could be a winner and you could win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. The Lakers are in Phoenix to face the Suns tonight. Will LeBron James have more or less than 22.5 points? Will Anthony Davis have more or less than 28.5 points? Those are actual picks you can make right now. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on sports action in most states, including California. Download the PrizePick app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's get into some individual players for the Kings in that loss against San Jose. Start with the goaltender, David Rittich. Had been playing great of late. He allowed all 7 goals in this one on 21 shots. Statistically horrible, but a lot of the goals were not on Rittich. And I'm someone who is pretty generous when it comes to goaltending. But let's just look at some of the goals. Breakaway on the first goal that's obviously not on him. The puck that goes off the skate of Mikey Anderson, that's not on him. The one where he got kind of screened and bumped by Trevor Moore, that wasn't really on him. The 2-man advantage for the Sharks that he gave up a goal on, that's not on him. Now, there was one goal, and unfortunately for David, it was a key goal that was on him. That was the first goal of the third period. Macklin Celebrini busting off a wrist shot from distance. He wasn't screened. He saw it all the way, and it just looked like it surprised him. It looked like he wasn't ready for it, and that's a very stoppable shot, in my opinion. And that turned out to be the game-winning goal, and turned out to be the thing that kind of got the Sharks going. So it was a key goal that he let in that I thought was a bad goal. A lot of them weren't his fault, but that one was, and that was a key goal. So that one stung. That was a tough one. Quentin Byfield talked about his big game-winning goal in the previous game against the Kraken. Talked about how we were hoping it would get Q going and hope the power play get going a little bit as well. Well, in this game, it certainly didn't work in either case. Q was hardly noticeable 5-on-5 for me in this game. He was a bit noticeable on the power play, but in the end, no points, 14 minutes and 53 seconds of ice time. He was a -2. Kevin Fiala. Did we get good Kevin or bad Kevin? We definitely got bad Kevin in this one. In addition to no points, he was a -3, had another stupid penalty, punched the Sharks player in the back of the head for basically nothing, just frustration. And it wasn't even, it wasn't like this was in the third period when he did it and we're down 3 goals. He did it early in the game in the first period. That's a penalty that the referee is going to see 99% of the time. It's a stupid penalty. And Kevin continues to not be a positive on the ice. He is fast becoming the most disappointing player on the Kings for me. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Kevin Fiala's future coming up. But I've talked about how important it is for the Kings to have a positive contribution more nights than not between Quentin Byfield and Kevin Fiala. And certainly that did not happen in this game. Alex Laferriere, just the facts. 8 goals in the first 12 games of the season, 1 goal in the last 10. Now, nobody, including myself, should have expected him to keep up that early season pace, but he has cooled off kind of significantly, and hopefully he can find his scoring touch again soon. Brandt Clarke, good to see him get a goal in this one. He's been a little bit quiet of late. Early on in the season, he was averaging a point per game. He had 11 points, 1 goal, and 10 assists in his first 11 games. Since then, 3 points in his next 11 games, 2 goals, and just 1 assist. So hopefully Brandt can be more of a contributor with that goal he had against the Sharks. Vladislav Gavrikov, talked about Gabby, how good he's been of late. Going into the game against the Sharks, he was a plus 12. He was a minus 3 against San Jose. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Vladdy's future with the LA Kings in a moment. All right, what was the one individual positive for me in this game? I mentioned him earlier, Adrian Kempe. Thought he had a very good game, had a great second period, had a lot of jump, very active, 2 primary assists, or actually 2 primary assists? I think it was 2. Yeah, 2 primary assists for the Kings on their 2 goals. Made a nice move in the neutral zone around a defender to get things going on that Kopitar goal, and then the nice pass over to Brandt Clarke for the second goal. And Kempe's been getting hot of late. He has 9 points in his last 7 games with 5 goals and 4 assists. So Juice is juiced up right now. Good to see. Hopefully you can keep that going forward here. But the one individual I would definitely single out as saying, good game for him, Adrian Kempe. Unfortunately, he was one of the few players for the Kings that had a positive all-around game against the San Jose Sharks. So should the Kings consider making a trade to shake things up? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Get ready to tackle the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets when you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. The Lakers, as I mentioned, are in Phoenix to take on the Suns. LA, a 2.5-point underdog against the Suns. Over-under is at 235 points. So if you want to get in on the action, just visit FanDuel.com and join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. Did want to mention, by the way, if you're curious, the Kings actually didn't lose any ground in the standings with that loss against the Sharks. LA is still in 3rd place as the day starts here on Tuesday in the Pacific Division. Kings remain 3 points back of Vegas, or actually 3 points back of Vegas. 2 points up on 2 points back of Calgary. LA is also 1 point up on Edmonton, 2 points up on Vancouver and Seattle. So things are very tight. The Flames did lose last night to the Senators, 4-3. Vegas won, beating the Flyers 5-4 in a shootout. The Kraken got by the Ducks 3-2, checking the other scores from the Pacific Division. Tonight, the Canucks will play the Bruins. If Vancouver wins that game, they would take over 3rd place in the Pacific from the Kings and knock LA into the 4th spot, for what it's worth. So should the LA Kings consider making a trade to shake things up? Well, sure, if it makes sense. The reason I bring this up is that a lot of teams in the NHL are pondering making a move because apparently the New York Rangers aren't real happy with the way their season has started, and they are looking to kind of shake things up. They've apparently offered forward Chris Kreider in a deal. Now, if you're not familiar with Chris Kreider, veteran guy, at times a elite goal scorer, but particularly a guy who's really good on the power play. Obviously, that would get the attention of the LA Kings, whose power play is struggling. So let's just talk about this. Let's consider this. Chris Kreider, if you're not familiar, 33 years old. He's going to turn 34 in April. He has 52 goals, or he had 52 goals 3 seasons ago. Since then, 36 and 39 goals each of the last 2 years. Certainly not bad. Not 52, but not bad. He's got 9 goals in 19 games this season, 3 goals on the power play. He had 26 power play goals to lead the NHL 3 years ago, 18 power play goals last season. He's got 2 more years on his contract. He makes $6.5 million per season. The LA Kings power play is ranked 28th in the NHL. The Kings have a total of 10 power play goals this season. Obviously, Chris Kreider could certainly help the Kings power play. But what would the Rangers be looking for in return? That's certainly an important question to ask. So look, the Rangers are 12-7-1 on the season, 4th place in the Metropolitan Division. They've been good, but not great. And going into this season, a lot of people thought they were a cup contender. They have arguably the top goalie in the NHL in Igor Shesterkin. They've got some elite players like Adam Fox on defense and Artemi Panarin on offense. But they're looking to be a cup contender now and in the immediate future. That's where they are. This is not a rebuilding team. They aren't looking for draft picks. They aren't looking for prospects, which is good, because if the LA Kings were to be considered in a trade for Chris Kreider, the Kings should not be looking to trade young players and first-round draft picks. That's not where the Kings are. The Kings are not where the Rangers are. The Kings are not trying to win a cup this year. I mean, look, everyone's trying to, but you know what I'm saying. They're not considered a cup contender. We all know this. This isn't breaking news. And so the Kings are looking for the future. They're looking to build into something. They're looking to get to where the Rangers are right now. So that's not an option. And you know, so a guy like Quinton Byfield should not and will not be on the table. It is a little bit intriguing, considering that the Rangers, if they were to trade for Quinton Byfield, they would have the 1st and 2nd overall picks in the 2020 draft with Alexis Lafreniere and Quinton Byfield. But again, that the Kings are not looking to trade any younger players, and frankly, the Rangers aren't looking for any younger players. They want to win now. So to me, there are 2 players on the Kings roster that could be of interest to the Rangers, and that would be Kevin Fiala and Vladislav Gavrikov, a forward and a defenseman. Not together, by the way, for Chris Kreider. I'm talking about one of them. Fiala's 28, comes with a lot of skill and potential, but seems like maybe he could use a change of scenery the way things are going right now. He certainly has not endeared himself to head coach Jim Hiller. I've said many times I like Kevin, but the facts are this season, he's been more of a negative than a positive. The problem with Fiala is that his cap hit is $7.8 million for the next 3 years after this season. So that could be an issue, but he is a splashy player. He's a flashy player and could be a player that could inject some life into a team, possibly with the old change of scenery, as they like to say. As for Gavrikov, I think he probably makes more sense for both sides. He's certainly not flashy like Fiala, but steady and solid. Could help the Rangers back end for sure. He has been playing well for LA, and he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. The Kings obviously don't want another Matt Roy situation where they let an asset walk away for nothing in return. Plus, Drew Doughty's coming back, at some point, and he could help fill the void that would be there with a Gavrikov trade. Gabby just turned 29. He has a cap hit of $5.87 million. I have no idea, though, if GM Rob Blake has been negotiating at all with Gavrikov's agent about an extension. I would guess that Gabby, if he continues to play well, would want to test the open market and see what is out there for him. Maybe he wants to stay in LA. Rob Blake has a history of not negotiating contracts during a season. That said, Blake himself is in the final year of his contract, so he may not even be around to work out an extension with Gavrikov at the end of the season. So how that plays into it, I don't know. But to me, that's maybe something that could be realistic for both sides. Again, I don't know if the Rangers are looking for a forward swap, but to me, if there is one player that does kind of make sense all the way around. And then, of course, the Rangers would have to be, looking to re-sign Gavrikov, and is that something that they could do? So that plays a factor into it as well. But if you're really kind of looking at it, to me, those two players, Kevin Fiala and Vladislav Gavrikov, would probably make the most sense. In the end, though, is this a trade that I would make? No, I wouldn't. Unless I knew for a fact that Gavrikov says I'm done at the end of the year. So why not get something for him if you can? But anyway, it's all fun speculation. I don't see this any kind of a trade happening between the two teams. Chris Kreider is a good veteran guy. He's the type of guy, though, you add to a cup contender to kind of put you over the top. I'm not saying you couldn't help the Kings, and certainly on the power play, and I get that there seems to be a fit there, but I don't think that's the type of player the Kings will be looking to bring in, unless, of course, like I said, if you know Gavrikov's gone, then you want to get pretty much anything in return for it. But I think at the trade deadline, considering where the Kings might be, it would make more sense to get some younger pieces, some draft picks, and younger pieces for the Kings going forward. So anyway, fun to talk about, but I don't think anything's going to happen, but who knows? All right, the Kings are back in action Wednesday as they host the number one team in the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets, and old friends Alex Iafallo and Gabe Vilardi. Will be very interesting to see how the Kings respond from this ugly loss against the Sharks, against the number one team so far this regular season in the NHL. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up obviously on Wednesday's show, we will preview that big Kings-Jets matchup and maybe bring in a special guest to help us as well. On Thursday, on Thanksgiving, we will have a recap of that game and also a preview of Friday's game against the Kings and Ducks. On Friday, we'll recap that game and have another Kings fan feedback show. Maybe you want to chime in on a Chris Kreider trade for the LA Kings and what you think about that. And anything else on your mind, send me an email, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. As always, you can leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section. We appreciate that because it helps people find the show. The more activity there is there. We'd love for you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.